we've been on a bit of a journey. Some of those words we've sung are taken from various psalms as well, in different places, different phrases, not all from one kind of psalm. But tonight we're gonna focus on one particular psalm, and during our Thursday gatherings, for those who've been around regularly or now and again, we're currently looking at the Bible's greatest hits, and these are we're looking at little bits in the Bible that are really about, that in our culture nowadays, that are familiar, whether we kind of have journeyed in faith or whether we haven't. And Delia, can I have a thing on? We're kind of looking at the Bible, because I can't remember what I'm saying without the next slide.
Hang on a minute, wait, what's it doing? Oh, right, okay.
That's okay. She's doodling, that's why.
I know, where was I? Where are you, even?
The next, yeah. So, the Bible, just a quick refresher what Esther or Carolyn shared really. The Bible is a book, books within books. There's loads of different authors, lots of different styles of writing. I think by the end of this we might get this and realise it's not all the same. And also throughout it is a space where God is communicating through us. It's telling us about our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And I guess tonight, as we look at Psalm 23, which is smack in the middle of the Bible, it's like this. The book of Psalms is like this kind of expression of relationship, and this expression that is all, for me, it's very real because it's messy. And like we started tonight, and Esther just did a kind of one of those pick a verse kind of thing in the Psalms from all sorts of kind of spaces, from places where it might say something that God, you are my hope, to God, are you even there, kind of thing. And we're going to explore that around one particular psalm tonight, Psalm 23. And Psalm 23 is a psalm that often we hear about, maybe sung or read in funerals. And some of the other psalms we will sing. Some people say that the psalms are like this worship songbook, but also are full of poems and poetry. It shows a full range of human emotions and experiences. But this particular one, often we relate it, and you'll see when we read it, and it's often said in funerals or sung in funerals. And I want to think specifically tonight about this psalm, what it means to us in everyday life, but also in the darkest moments. So in both, because sometimes we can hear this psalm and go, park it, that's kind of a funeral, that's the dark kind of thing, darkest moments. But actually, what does this look like in everyday life? Actually, the last time, I think the next slide, the last time I heard this talk was Esther. This is Esther. This is September 2020. So this was in the middle of the pandemic, or I think it was just after the first set of lockdowns, in the middle of the pandemic. It is a great talk. I started listening to it again this week, and yeah, have a listen to it. It'll probably say more than I'm going to say, because I'm just going to flick through a few thoughts so that we can have plenty of time to chat and discuss together. And I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I want to paint a bit of context and ask some questions. But before we do, we're going to read the psalm. I'll put the whole lot on the screen, or then you will. Let me read this, and then we'll have a think through it. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And I'm sure for many of us, we might have heard that first line, the Lord is my shepherd. And then we might skip through different points in life. We can skip through the rest of it and go, oh, that's now, this is now, no, this is not. And the first thing I noticed was, actually it's totally personal. The Lord is my shepherd. It's me. It's mine. It's directed towards me, this psalm. It's not just sharing about who God is and distant, and God is, it's my shepherd. And I know that sounds pretty simple, but actually that kind of frames what we think about tonight. Because I want us to think about, what does this mean and what does this look like in every day and the darkest, and also in the darkest moments. So I was thinking about it and thinking, I like imagery, I like to picture, and when the Bible calls God a shepherd, it's using imagery that ancient Israel was really used to. We're not used to that here. I don't think I've ever met a shepherd. So I'm not used to what a shepherd even looks like. And a shepherd was a humble, hard-working person who lived outside most of the time, protecting and guiding sheep. And often they would sleep outside at night. They're apparently, you can check it out and have a look up yourself, they kind of wore kind of these tunics, which are kind of just a piece of cloth made of wool or goat's hair, and something around the waist as well. Leather sandals, because the terrain's really rough. Held a rod to beat off wild animals. A staff for a rough terrain to help walk. I mean, we don't ever see that here. I mean, it's just not in our kind of context of what we even see. So I needed to get a picture of what that looks like as I kind of go into this. And particularly in Psalm 23, the shepherd's actions show how God cares for us, for his people. And I want us to, I'm not going to go through every verse, I'm just going to pick out a few things. But I want us to think about, where do you find yourself right now? As we look at this psalm and together, where do you find yourself right now? It says, one bit, he leads me beside quiet waters. He leads me in paths of righteousness. So this shepherd is guiding the sheep. He knows the land. Leads the sheep to safe places, to water, to grass, to shelter. Is that where you need to be, or is that where you're at? You need to know God's guiding in a safe direction. Maybe it says he makes me lie down in green pastures. A shepherd finds safe grass places, grassy places for the sheep to rest and eat. The shepherd is guiding to a place where there is food and rest. And that can mean physically, can mean emotionally, mean spiritually, whatever way you want to look at it. Is that where you're at? Or where you'd like to be? Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And if this rod was used to, fight off wild animals, they're all coming out of Bristol Zoo, as we were talking about earlier, but no, it's not really. The staff to guide, to rescue sheep when they're in trouble. Is that where you're at now? You need protection from danger, or protection, you need God's protection, God's comfort, somewhere in that space when life feels dark or dangerous. You see what I mean? There's just every kind of emotion, every experience in this one psalm. And then it says, He restores my soul. God restores us when we're weary or lost. Sheep get lost, they fail. The shepherd goes after them and carries them back to a place of restoration, a place of rescuing them. And just finally, the other one is, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, or surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of your life. The shepherd never abandons. God never abandons. He stays close. God's presence and love is constant. Nothing else in this world is constant. We know that. But God's love is constant. So this, just from 5 little bits there, a shepherd guides, provides, protects, rescues and stays. And Psalm 23 says that's what God is like. But what does that look like for us every day? What does that mean for us today? We'll have a think about that in a few minutes and have a chat about that, and maybe with any of those particular kind of bits are where you're at or you've experienced in the past. But also, what does it look like in the darkest times? And I said earlier that it's often read or sung during funerals. But I also want to recognise that grief and loss and disappointment happens at every point in life. And every one of us in this room has experienced that. We often think of the darkest moment is when someone dies. And that's where we refer to this psalm. But actually, we experience loss and grief throughout our lives. And that might be to do not just, that could be to do with jobs, that could be to do with relationships, it could be to big transition moments, it could be to do with health. And I'm hoping that talking through this psalm later, and we just spend that time, is useful for us to go, okay, God, where I've experienced loss, or I'm in loss, or I know it's coming, or I experience grief, I know grief or it's coming, or I've experienced disappointment, or I know disappointment now or it's coming. What does this psalm show us? And not looking for pet answers that kind of go, oh, that's my little kind of badge that I'm going to wear, but something that is we hold on to. And I'll be honest, I've had many seasons that I've struggled. And living in a dark season is not easy. I want to share a little story from a writer called Tanya Marlowe. I'm not very good at reading books. Those who know me know I'm not very good at reading books, but I like reading blogs and kind of people's stories, short stories and illustrations. And I'm reading this out because I see a lot of what's happened in my life in recent years in this one illustration. And it's easier to read someone else's than to say my own, because I will probably end up in a mess. And also I haven't got the permission to say my own personal. So I'm just going to read this, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what, for one person, darkest moments were like. Out of the blue, a few weeks before a long-awaited romantic break, I had ME relapse, where the symptoms worsened over a month or two. I needed to be extra careful about not overdoing it. When you're pretty much bedbound with chronic illness already, this looks like is being unable to stand unsupported, feeling so nauseous with chest pressure and weakness that any ordinary person would call for an ambulance, but you know that sometimes ME feels a lot like having a heart attack, and you just have to live with it. By the time the trip came, I still hadn't recovered, so I had to cancel. Sometimes, without knowing it, we bargain our way through life. X is hard, but I have Y. so that will make up for it. We don't realise we're doing it till the disappointment hits us hard and we cry out to God, this is not fair. After coping fine for a while, it can be the seemingly little things that push us over the edge. In this case, an ME relapse and the cancellation of something I'd been looking forward to. And that's how grief has been hitting me this week. I cry for the injustice of good people taken too soon. I cry for the whole suffering world at the moment. I cry for my illness and the person I used to be. I'm sad and disappointed that we had to cancel a long anticipated trip away again. And I'm tired, oh so tired, of being constantly limited by my illness and not having my own independence. Then naturally, I feel guilty about those griefs when others have deeper griefs. And I cry for the suffering of those isolated in their houses, abandoned by doctors, abused by their carers. Then I tell myself not to be guilty, but to feel what I'm feeling, and I cry again. But this time I can't be sure why, other than the world is not what it should be, and I'm feeling it. It all gets wrapped up together. Our grief can occasionally be in the socially acceptable place, but sometimes it leaks out into the middle of life. Grief does not work to our timetable. Grief comes in waves and bursts and intrudes upon our lives at unexpected times, as well as the time we have allotted it. That's one person's little glimpse of a story. And you can see this kind of roller coaster of thoughts and emotions. I want us to spend some time now thinking about this psalm, thinking about what does it look like to have a God who guides, provides, protects, rescues and stays in everyday life and in the darkest times. And I just want to encourage us, and we'll have, plenty of time to do that, and kind of a couple groups maybe. I want to say you can share factually or experientially, but you don't have to say anything, and you don't have to share anything that is kind of now or the past if you don't want to. But you can also just kind of look at this psalm and go, well, if this means this here, then how would that look in my life? How would it look to let God shepherd your life like that? To actually say, the Lord is my shepherd, and step into that.